Welcome back. You're watching the Emerging India series, and today we're looking at the Indian pharmaceutical industry, and playing mentor to our SME and mid-sized company on this episode is Dr. Hasid Joshipura, Senior Vice President South Asia and Managing Director India of GlaxoSmithKline Pharmaceuticals. Sumit Lakotia caught up with him to discuss the trends in the Indian pharma industry and the role of SMEs.
Thank you, Dr. Joshipura, for joining us on the show. Now, my first question to you is, there's a lot of volatility and uncertainty in the Indian pharmaceutical industry currently. What's your thought on what the next year could look like for this industry?
As far as the domestic space is concerned, I think the only watershed, if you will, was the new price control implementation, which was last year really. And you will see the impact of that certainly on the companies which have been affected through the second quarter of the current financial year. After that, I think that should the base effect should wear out, and then I think it should be business as usual, because, as I've always said, this is a market which is which continues to be significantly underpenetrated as far as healthcare is concerned. So we should expect to continue to see the same level of growth, which is double-digit from then on. On the export front, difficult to say, because it's, I think there is an opportunity. There will continue to be an opportunity for Indian medicines. There's no doubt about that. But, there was this period of 2012 to 2016 where you had a very large number of patent expirations. And many of those opportunities will be behind us. So then I think the question is what kind of business models we build to ensure that we sustain our export base.
When you talk about macroeconomic events, like you also earlier mentioned the patent expiry and all of these kind of events, they eventually have an effect on SMEs also. How can SMEs work towards insulating themselves from these kind of shocks?
I think the impact of international events on SMEs is presumably, to a lesser extent than the larger companies, because they don't directly export. At least most of them don't directly export. To the extent that they supply exporters, there would be an impact. But again, that is becoming less and less, because as Indian companies are exporting to the developed geographies, they have to have their own manufacturing, or if they, that manufacturing then has to meet standards, and therefore SMEs are not a part of that game. And to that extent, therefore, SMEs are impacted more by changes in the domestic market, to my mind. And I think the only way they can sort of insulate themselves, and if they are sort of contract manufacturers, to diversify their customer base.
We've seen a huge change in the domestic market of the country over the last few years. More disposable income, more access to healthcare, unfortunately more a rise in so-called rich diseases. How can SMEs who are looking at this local market work so that they can grow and meet the need of the people?
See, my own view is that it will really depend on the time frame that you're looking at, because of two reasons. One is, if you look at the near term, then I think what you're already beginning to see is a consolidation among the Indian pharmaceutical industry. And that trend, to my mind, will continue. So in a sense, the Indian market will get polarized, where you will have large players and you will have small players. And the small players' raison d'etre will really be cost and price. And there's a choice which SMEs will have to make. Either they decide to remain small, in which case they have two options. Either that they decide to limit the scope of their ambitions if they are directly producing formulations in terms of either geography or dosage forms. And on the other side, they will have to, the other option they will have is to then build scale and get out of being an SME, in which case they will then have to have the wherewithal to be able to build a national presence and build a portfolio of products, which is a very different journey altogether. So it's a choice which will have to be made in the near term. In the longer term, I think that choice will be made by somebody else, because as India gets integrated into the global economy, and in the case of pharmaceuticals, it will mean our standards, internal standards, will then have to match global standards, US FDA, MHRA, any of these. Then I think that will require significant investments. So in any case, they will then have to, if they want to remain in the formulation space, they will have to then grow out of the SME space.
Dr. Joshipura, earlier on the show we caught up with two companies, and here are their questions for you.
What are the changes that we need to bring into our company to be more effective, and to see that we grow much better from here on, and to consolidate and not to lose in the changing environment.
The opportunity for formulations, branded generic formulations in India will continue for quite a while. And if they have already built up an infrastructure, if they have already built up a presence in the country, then I think they should continue with that. And but on the other hand, if they have some very specific capabilities on the CRO side, when you mean CRO, I presume you're talking about clinical research.
Yes, yes.
See, as it is, the clinical research area currently is under a bit of a cloud because I think the regulations have to get crystallized. Once that is done, then the question they have to ask themselves is, what is the capability they have versus the global CROs or the CROs of scale who are in this country, and what is their differential competitive edge? Because that will determine the sustainability of their CRO operation in the end. What you need to identify is, who is your customer base for all the three put together? Are there a set of customers who are distinctly looking for a portfolio of services which includes all the three which they are offering?
Right.
And if there is, global people who are customers who want to come into the country, then so be it. But that's a careful assessment they will have to do.
What is the main challenges right now? We need to find some solutions like integrating requirements of intermediates from a few Indian companies so that the intermediate manufacturing will get scale, and it can be done very profitably.
See, that's a difficult issue, because the problem with oncology is that, and this is a problem for even companies which are in research, oncology has different solutions for different kinds of cancers, and the solutions vary. The dosage forms vary. The manufacturing technology varies. And this is one of the reasons why cancer products are so high, because there is a small patient pool over, but the R&D cost remains the same. So it's not easy to integrate on the back end, because you have different products and the volumes may not be large. So if they can find a business model wherein they can do small batches, but without the, at the same time maintaining the advantage, and this is not an easy answer, I know. That's the only way to do it. I don't think you can integrate in a way that you can get a scale, even though the requirements across different oncology molecules is different. Okay. There's no easy answer to that one.
Dr. Joshipura, what is your advice to SMEs in the pharma sector who are watching this show?
SMEs will continue to have a role to play in pharma, even though the game will change as we go along, and I think they have to find the right niche and build up the right level of expertise in that niche. That's true for any business, not just pharma.
Thank you so much for coming on the show with us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, that wraps up this week's episode of Emerging India. Do tune in next week when we hear the stories of two stellar companies in the agri and food processing sector, while R.S. Sodhi, the Managing Director of Amul, plays mentor. Until then, from the entire team, many thanks for watching.